faithfully delivering value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring the book Lives Full of Resentment Yet Unwilling to Divorce. Its original Japanese title was Wives Who Wish Their Husbands Were Dead. For Miyuki, a 38-year-old office worker, every morning is a battle, rushing to work while getting the kids fed and dressed. One morning, her 3-year-old son threw an unexpected tantrum, refusing to cooperate. Then, her 1-year-old daughter spilled food everywhere. As Miyuki scrambled to clean up, her husband leisurely made tea in the kitchen. Miyuki urgently asked her husband for help. He casually replied, "Just a sec." That indifferent response ignited her fury. In that moment, murderous intent flooded her mind. She realized she'd completely fallen out of love. Husbands might wonder, over something so small.
But author Kobayashi Miki argues these murderous impulses emerge precisely from daily trivialities. Kobayashi Miki is a Japanese freelance journalist focusing on marriage and childcare issues. She won the 2013 Poverty Reporting Award and authored The Society That Won't Let Us Have Children. And Kobayashi Miki,
In 2015, a husband murder case caught her attention. The 70-year-old woman beat her 89-year-old husband to death. After 50 years of marriage, the husband confessed to a 36-year-old affair just before the attack. As he lay bedridden with stomach cancer, the wife kept reliving his decades-old betrayal. In rage, she beat him to death. This case reminded Kobayashi that every wife she'd interviewed about work and childcare had wished for their husband's death. Moreover, Japan's Mainichi Shimbun reported that typing husband in search engines automatically suggests die first. Though most wives never act, what breeds such profound hatred? Today's book explores this through 15 Japanese women's marital experiences. This book was published in 2016 and has 5 chapters. The author explores the social and workplace environmental causes of marital problems and attempts to propose solutions. Next, I'll interpret the main content of the book for you in 3 parts. First, what makes wives resent their husbands? Second, why don't they divorce? And how do they face marital problems? Third, how to resolve the wife's resentment. Okay, let's dive into the first part. Why do wives hate their husbands? Leaving pregnant wives at home while they go out partying, making excuses about overtime to avoid picking up kids from daycare, criticizing wives and bossing them around. The author found through interviews that these small daily incidents often become triggers for wives' resentment and even murderous intent. As the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. Accumulated conflicts in marriage build up the wife's hatred over time. One of the most common conflicts is Japan's same surname system for married couples. Let's start with Miyuki's story. Miyuki was taught from childhood that women must marry before turning 30. At 29, she married a colleague from the advertising company, fulfilling what she saw as a life duty. However, when filling out the marriage application, Miyuki and her husband clashed over whether to change their surnames. Japan is the only developed country that legally requires spouses to share the same surname. But this law was enacted in 1898 when Japanese women couldn't even receive education. Today, Japanese women are on par with men in high school and college enrollment rates. According to a Japanese government survey, among respondents under 59, 40 to 50% agree that spouses shouldn't need to share a surname, but the law hasn't been adjusted accordingly. This makes the same surname system one of the main causes of conflict among Japanese couples. In Japan, people are often addressed by their surnames, giving surnames a strong sense of identity. Changing surnames upon marriage causes some women to feel a loss of identity and question their existence. Japanese divorce litigation expert Tatsuki Koryo argues that women taking their husband's surname is a distorted manifestation of a male-dominated society. Without eliminating this gender inequality, discrimination against women won't disappear, and women will remain subordinate. Before marriage, Miyuki told her husband it was unreasonable for wives to automatically change surnames. He could change his instead. The husband flew into a rage, yelling that women taking husbands' surnames was natural. They argued fiercely, but the wedding was the next day. Ultimately, Miyuki compromised, only changing her surname on official documents like the family register and payroll, while using her maiden name elsewhere. After marriage, Miyuki's husband was generally gentle and kind, and they shared some happy times. At 34, Miyuki's pregnancy began widowed-style parenting that shattered her affection for her husband. And this widowed-style parenting is precisely another major cause of marital conflict. Before their first son's birth, her husband promised to take paternity leave to help with chores and childcare, none of which happened. Miyuki took a year of childcare leave, entering widowed-style parenting. Her son cried hourly, needing constant holding and feeding, even waking every hour or two at night. Plus household chores from sleep deprivation and exhaustion, Miyuki lost 10 kilos postpartum and developed depression. Meanwhile, her husband enjoyed hot meals served daily, radiating energy and contentment. On weekends, he'd announce, "Contributing to the household," by playing briefly with the kids or, doing minimal chores. Asking him to solo parent was impossible. He'd just panic and summon Miyuki. After her childcare leave, Miyuki sent her son to daycare and returned to work. Yet when daycare issues or checkups arose, Miyuki always took leave, never her husband. She even switched to reduced hours, 6-hour days, for pickups. Though both worked, childcare fell solely on her, a norm accepted by her husband, company, and daycare. If the child got sick at daycare, they called Miyuki first, never the father. Yet her husband, who only occasionally did drop-offs, proclaimed himself a great dad. On one hand, Miyuki raised the child virtually alone. On the other, every document, from prenatal records to government forms, used the father's surname, fueling Miyuki's resentment. Her feelings for her husband faded, until one day, while discussing mortgage and insurance payments, she suddenly realized she genuinely wished he would die. A Japanese survey of 300 couples found that childbirth causes a sharp decline in wives' affection for their husbands. 74.3% of surveyed couples reported deeply loving each other during pregnancy. By the child's second birthday, 51.7% of husbands still deeply loved their wives, but wives deeply loving husbands plummeted to 34%, less than half the pregnancy rate. This mirrors extreme unfairness in Japanese couples' division of housework and childcare. A 20113 survey by Japan's National Institute of Population and Social Security Research showed wives handle 85.1% of housework. Additionally, wives undertake 79.8% of childcare duties. Husbands caring for kids once or twice weekly, mostly just play or bathe with them, what the author calls getting off easy. Another 2014 study found Japanese husbands' top chores were locking doors, year-end cleaning, grocery shopping, and taking out trash. The author identifies workplace gender inequality as key to these patterns. Japan's workplaces are downright hostile toward women, especially mothers. In Japan, 25% of women face pregnancy discrimination, like demotions to insignificant departments or cold treatment from colleagues. Additionally, 60 to 70% of Japanese working women lose their jobs after having their first child. 60% of Japanese working women are non-regular employees who can't get childbirth leave, so childbirth means unemployment, forcing them into full-time housewifery. Even regular employees are seen as unreliable for taking childbirth leave or leaving early. They face immense pressure while being sidelined for promotions and raises. Tamaho Katayama, 41, a systems engineer earning equal to her husband, handled everything from buying houses to dismantling old furniture. But to care for her child, this capable woman reduced her hours, losing income and being excluded from key projects. Tamaho fumed internally. Why do men maintain their positions just by being male?
And why is her own husband so incompetent yet so smug?
Unequal job opportunities lead to income inequality, which in turn creates disparities in household chores and family status. According to a 2014 Japanese National Tax Agency survey, men's average annual salary was 5.14 million yen, about 300,000 renminbi, double women's average. Men with 5 to 9 years of experience earn more than women with over 30 years seniority. Earlier, we mentioned Miyuki's husband promised childcare leave, but reneged after their child was born. His reason was simple: taking leave could get him demoted or fired. Even if he kept his position, his monthly pay could drop by up to 50% during leave. He was older than Miyuki and earned more. Economically, if someone had to take leave, it had to be Miyuki. Taking leave and handling more housework then leads to workplace discrimination, a vicious cycle. Many women quit when they can't balance work and family. This reality makes some women actively seek to become housewives, hoping marriage will offer escape. But the author found financially secure men often prioritize work. Some even treat wives as maids. 39-year-old Asuka Tagawa is one such housewife, living in a luxury Tokyo apartment with her husband and 4-year-old daughter. Asuka wears designer brands and applies full makeup even to take out trash. But her life is only surface deep. Her husband works constantly. Weekends are for overtime or golf with clients, leaving all chores and childcare to her. Yet he remains unsatisfied. Spotting dust on furniture, he'd wipe it and demand, "What's this? Our daughter?" After birth, he mapped strict educational plans for her. English before age 1, rhythm training at 2, ballet and piano starting at 3. If she lagged slightly behind parenting books, the husband would demand,
Asuka, you don't even work. How can you not have time to watch the child? It's your low education that made our daughter so dumb.
He also constantly acted like he was bestowing favors upon Asuka,
Telling her,
"Just think how blessed you are. I guarantee 3 meals daily and even an afternoon nap." Initially, Asuka endured it for comfort, but resentment toward her husband kept accumulating.
without me managing the house and kids, how could he possibly work undistracted?
Asuka's story wasn't unique. Multiple interviewees described husbands ordering them around like maids. When one wife said, "Could you help with chores?" her husband sneered, "If you earned as much as me, I would." She never asked again, but her love for him died completely. The author emphasizes that full-time housewives' domestic labor has immense value. A 2013 Japanese Cabinet Office evaluation estimated household labor's value at 97 to 138 trillion yen, approximately 4.9 to 7 trillion renminbi, as of 2011. Full-time housewives and women in dual-income households contributed 64% to 91% of this total value. Japanese women spend 4.9 times more time on housework than men, meaning housewives are effectively earning income. Yet this labor goes unrecognized, with husbands often assuming wives have it easy. For Takako Kato, 46, the turning point came when her husband saw her doing chores and playing with their child after work and sighed, "How nice to just play with kids all day." That utterly inconsiderate remark shattered Takako's heart. Before marriage, Takako was a top-tier career professional. She first worked at a government financial institution, translating and organizing reports for entities like the Federal Reserve and Bank of England. Later, she was headhunted by a foreign financial firm with a 10 million yen annual salary, approximately 500,000 renminbi. 15 years ago, after childbirth, she realized she couldn't balance both worlds and reluctantly resigned.
When she wanted to return to the workforce, she encountered heavy resistance.
Eventually, through a friend, she found a temporary job at a private research institute With an annual salary of 3 million yen, equivalent to over 100,000 renminbi, less than a third of her pre-childbirth income. Ew.
And while Takako was struggling to return to the workforce, her husband continued to be hands-off, pushing all time-consuming and laborious housework onto her.
Takako worked as a temp for 6 years before finding a permanent job at an investment consulting firm. Later, she joined a listed company as management, finally matching her husband's income.
It took Takako 11 years to get to this point. For all the hardship behind it, and for her resentment at sacrificing her career, her husband showed no understanding and just said, "Well, the outcome is good."
Her husband even sniped at Takako in front of visiting friends, saying, "She's such a workaholic. Now she earns more than me and acts all high and mighty at home." Hearing this, a murderous intent surged from Takako's heart. Bastard, drop dead. I've lost 11 years, and he couldn't care less. Above, we discussed how social attitudes and job opportunity inequalities lead to unfairness in income and household division of labor between spouses. If husbands don't understand or help, over time, wives' hatred will accumulate. Finally, after some seemingly minor incident, it turns into murderous intent. Hearing this, you might ask, if life is so bad, why don't wives just divorce? In the second part, we'll discuss this issue. One main reason is economic problems. As mentioned earlier, 60 to 70% of working women find it hard to get permanent jobs after losing their jobs post-giving birth to their first child.
Additionally, over 60% of single mothers never receive child support from their ex-husbands.
If there's no family property to divide upon divorce, the wife's basic livelihood afterward is hard to secure. Raising a child from kindergarten to university, even in public schools, costs about 7.69 million Japanese yen, equivalent to 390,000 renminbi. Private schools are more expensive. It's hard for a single mother to raise a child alone. Societal judgment is also a reason. Some wives worry that divorce is bad for the children. As mentioned earlier, Takako Kato earns enough to support herself and her son, but as the only married woman with children in the company's management, she couldn't bring herself to divorce. She told the author, "I truly wish my husband would die sooner. Becoming a widow would actually raise my social status. I can live alone just fine. My social standing would even improve. I have no problem living independently." Moreover, Takako felt her 11-year career interruption was irreversible.
Divorcing now would only benefit her husband. She had to maintain the marriage to force him to keep providing.
Unable to divorce or actually kill their husbands, some wives began fantasizing about or enacting revenge. Especially wives from the Dankai generation, those born post-war. In their youth, Japanese society was even more patriarchal. Husbands were more chauvinistic and less supportive, deepening Dankai wives' resentment. As they aged with their husbands, the household power dynamic often flipped. Retired husbands, idle all day, they'd cling to wives like damp leaves stuck to shoes. Women reacted completely opposite.
When husbands die, wives come alive. They might breathe briefly, but bounce back more vibrant than ever.
Divorce has similar effects for women. 40-year-old Japanese women live 40.49 more years on average after divorce. Divorced men, the same age, live only 28.72 more years, but divorce remains unrealistic for some. If couples split pensions, neither can live independently, forcing cohabitation. To minimize husband exposure, Dankai wives developed tactics like home renovations. After their 2 adult children moved out, a wife told her husband, "Take one room as your study, read in peace." She converted the other into her own bedroom, ending co-sleeping. A top contractor told the author, "Half of renovations become excuses for separate bedrooms." Other wives suggest, "Let's renovate the kitchen." Husbands expect better meals, but wives just add a wall between kitchen and living room, blocking his view. Compared to that, 65-year-old Hanamura Yoko's revenge method is more thrilling. She decided to dump her husband's ashes. On a train, Yoko endured her husband's abuse for 40 years. He'd devour meals she cooked without saving her a bite. During her pregnancy, he partied nightly at clubs. She took loans, saved up, bought a house, and opened a salon, working tirelessly while he idled. When customers came, he kept watching TV, dumping all work on Yoko. Whenever she saved money, he'd travel abroad, emptying her accounts. At 38, overworked, Yoko developed cervical cancer, requiring a hysterectomy. Her husband coldly said, "Without a uterus, are you even a woman?" Yoko could never forget those words.
From that day, she never let him touch her again.
For 40 years, Yoko told him in her heart, countless times, "Guy."
She'd even considered stabbing him with a nail at night.
But knowing it was a crime, she never acted. She believed single-parent kids faced discrimination, and divorce was economically unrealistic. So she endured without divorcing. Only after 40 years, when the kids grew up, did Yoko decide to reclaim her life. She ignored him. Whatever he said, she'd only reply, "Can't hear you." When he caught a cold, she told him, "Cure your own sickness." She didn't want to cook for him, but eating out cost more, so she'd slap together whatever.
She gave him 20,000 yen monthly allowance, often yelling,
"Do you realize you wasted all our money?"
"You should work until you drop!" The day before, a customer told Yoko about someone dumping ashes on a train.
JR would store the ashes temporarily before handing them to police for random burial. Hearing this, Yoko thought joyfully.
I'll do that too.
Her husband looked gloomy, perhaps genuinely afraid his ashes would be discarded, or afraid of being kicked out. Nearing 70, he became obedient, even making a will as she wished, putting the house in her name. One of Yoko's friends told her husband, "The kids moved out. The house feels empty. Let's sell it." Then, once her husband moved into a rented apartment, this friend fled with the house sale money. Yoko had another friend whose hot-tempered husband, even at 80, took a lover. When this friend complained, Yoko said, "Oh, if it were me, I'd wring dirty mop water into your husband's miso soup." Whether her friend did it remains unknown, but Yoko scrubbed the toilet with her husband's toothbrush and watched him keep using it. How should we address wives' overwhelming resentment, even murderous impulses, and help them live better? How can we help wives live better lives? In the third part, we discuss the National Taishu Kanpaku Association, introduced by the author. Taishu means one who serves tea. Kanpaku refers to a historical regent position below the emperor. This association crowns wives as household emperors, with husbands tasked to pamper and support them. Founded in 1999 with 25,000 members, its chairman, Amano Shuichi, believes husbands should focus less on national affairs and more on survival rates at home by daily practicing 3 principles. Say thank you without hesitation, sorry without shame, and I love you without embarrassment. Husbands must also know their place. Looking down on wives ruins marriages. A competent, survivable husband does chores, practices ladies first, holds his wife's hand on walks, listens attentively, and resolves mother-in-law conflicts overnight. Yamano Masato, an education worker, adds that husbands earning 50 million yen yearly can hire help, but average earners must face housework and childcare head-on. There's no fixed chore quota for wifely happiness. Couples should agree on responsibilities beforehand. Key rule: whoever can do it, does it. For example, when his wife took childcare leave, Yamano handled night feedings. While she did morning makeup, he made breakfast and dressed their kids. Besides men changing their attitudes, the author believes that to solve marital issues, we must also start by changing the workplace environment and improving social security. Take childcare leave as an example. As of 2014, only 2.3% of Japanese men took childcare leave.
Reasons include the gender pay gap we mentioned earlier and corporate prejudice against men taking childcare leave.
In fact, gender difference awareness between men and women in Japan is gradually decreasing. Among younger or highly educated people, the proportion agreeing with the idea of men as breadwinners and women as homemakers after marriage is declining yearly. Many young Japanese men want to take childcare leave too, but they can't or don't dare to. A male employee at a financial institution cautiously asked his boss, "My child is about to be born. Can I take childcare leave?" The boss replied, "Think carefully. Can you bear the consequences of taking leave?" And most men who actually take childcare leave get demoted or face discrimination. A 34-year-old R&D employee at an IT company told the author that after his 3-month childcare leave ended, he was transferred from his project, later demoted, and moved from his development role for taking frequent child-related leave. Since then, none of his male colleagues dared to take childcare leave again.
Even at companies that allow men to apply for childcare leave, it's often just used as a performance metric to boast about.
Companies actively supporting employee childcare can be certified by the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare if they meet standards.
For companies supporting childcare, this not only boosts their image, but also helps attract graduates and gain government tax benefits.
But some companies just want the certification and don't seriously implement childcare leave policies. A male employee in his 30s frankly said at a company new hire orientation, "I only took 2 weeks of childcare leave. If I wanted to take longer, I'd be seen as dispensable. My childcare leave is just a company statistic." Clearly, there's still a long way to go to change the entire workplace environment. Beyond that, the author believes we need to strengthen social security for women to help them dare to escape misfortune. The barriers of marriage. On one hand, during divorce property division, compensation for wives' unpaid labor at home should be considered instead of just splitting assets equally. On the other hand, we must strengthen social support for childcare. In Japan, without parental assistance, women struggle to both raise children independently and maintain careers. Take public daycare centers. If a child shows minor symptoms, teachers demand immediate pickup, disrupting parents' work. Improving such social security could empower resentful wives to divorce bravely and raise kids independently. Finally, the book explores the essence of marriage itself. Eimano Shuichi, from the National Teishu Konpaku Association, views marriage as heaven's prank, binding incompatible people, yet revealing human nature through it. Love and hate for one person become irreversibly tangled over time, like Yoko's once despised husband becoming indispensable. Sometimes Yoko told him, "Don't die at home, get hit by a luxury car. I'd get 10 million yen in insurance." He listened silently, then they'd chat like any ordinary couple. Sometimes Yoko even recalled his kindness. Like when other parents badmouthed Yoko during daycare days, he taught her to clap back fearlessly. Maybe Yoko wanting him to work until he drops wasn't just hate, but needing his company. She said, "Maybe I just don't want to clean rooms or do laundry alone." Here, Yoko laughed and added, "But I'll still scrub the toilet with his toothbrush." That concludes our interpretation of Wives Full of Resentment, Yet Unwilling to Divorce. Reading notes are below. Until next time.